Okay, well, we're just going to go on. It's not giving me the bar. It's not popping up to make it on the full thing for some reason. Did that earlier today too. Anyway, we'll just do it like this. We can, I'm not sure why it's not coming up now. Did a while ago. Anyway, this is our second part of talking about obesity, weight management, and how to solve the problem essentially, or hopefully to. Some strategies involved. As we mentioned last time, in the United States, about 70% of the population is overweight or obese. About between 15 and 20% of kids are overweight or obese. This is around 200 million people just in the United States. Worldwide, there's about 2.2 billion people that are overweight or obese. So this is not limited to here. We certainly have more than our share in the United States, but there's a lot of people all over the world who are obese or overweight nowadays. It's become probably the biggest public health problem in the world. Now, this is obviously with that many people, almost all of whom want to lose weight, it's a very tempting crisis that can be exploited by people who are perhaps not as upfront about their motivations, not as scrupulous as many of us are, and who would take advantage of this situation. However, that doesn't mean that all the weight loss companies out there are unethical. Actually, many of them are pretty good companies. They have different approaches to weight loss, but many of them actually are not bad companies. So I'm not going to say that it's a completely flawed area. However, there are some bad players out there who are taking advantage of people. And we'll talk about that a little bit more and how to really avoid getting sucked in because they're pretty slick. Now, I'm taking kind of a backwards approach to weight management because most people, want you to jump in there and lose all this weight real quick and pay a lot of money for their program. Actually, I'm saying let's back up a little bit and start from the back end of this and start doing the things, first of all, that would help you maintain weight if you'd already lost it. So we're not really saying, first of all, lose a whole bunch of weight and then we'll figure out how to keep it off. Because that approach doesn't really work. That's been the most consistent complaint that the scientific community and nutrition community has had against weight loss programs. They say that these approaches don't work because people, when they quit them, they gain all their weight back. And of course, that's true for most of the people who lose weight. They go back to what they were doing and the weight comes right back after they've lost it. That's something that happens over and over. And that's not surprising, really. And we'll talk about that some more too. Now, last time we talked about ways that you can help maintain your muscle mass, because that's really critical for maintaining your body type in general, maintaining body weight, because the muscles are really what utilize most of the excess energy that you take in. And so as you lose muscle mass with age, you have less ability to, burn fat, to burn carbohydrates, and to keep the weight off. And so it's just one part of it, but that's one important thing that people have a problem with as they age. They start losing muscle mass. If they keep eating the same way, they're going to have to replace it with fat. And that's part of the problem that everybody faces. And you cannot very likely maintain a healthy body fat amount if you're losing muscle mass. It just makes it a lot more difficult. So that's why I say I'm doing this backwards. Last time we talked about how to maintain muscle mass. And actually, Dr. Sunman Park and I just published a paper on that in the journal Cells. If anybody wants to read it, it's certainly available. It's an open access publication, and you're welcome to read it. If you want me to email it to you, I can. If you want a copy of it, if you're around here, I can give you a copy of it. But it's a really a good article. I think I really liked the way we did it. It explains how the muscle, the gut, the brain, the liver all kind of work together to maintain each other and to maintain a healthy body type. So I recommend that you read it. I think that a lot of people who are not scientists could understand a lot of it. So that's something that's out there if you want to learn more. But we do know that all of these things work together to give you a healthy body type. And that's kind of the point, is that you want to do the things that will help you keep a strong, healthy body, because that way you won't gain the weight, but you will also have a better lifestyle in general. So what do? Well, resistance exercise, or people refer to it as strength exercises, that helps you really build muscle. It favors what they call fast twitch muscles, but in muscle in general, it helps you build more muscle and keep it up. Endurance exercise helps you get more of the slow twitch muscles, but also it increases the mitochondria in the muscle cells. That's the energy regulation and producing area. So both of those kinds of exercise are really important. Also involved in this is the amino acid L-leucine. It's really important. It's the major nutritional stimulant for muscle growth. Now, other things that work on what they call the SIRT1 pathway are also important. Resveratrol, which stimulates what's known as PGC1, which is niacin dependent. So there's a couple of things there that might help that. Resveratrol is a little bit controversial. We're not quite sure how well it works, really. People are debating that, and you'll hear people on both sides of that argument. But anyway, it's there. Niacin is definitely a part of it. Now, like we said last time, this was kind of the typical look in the 1950s. Everybody was very thin back then, just about. There were people who were overweight and obese, sure, but not like today. In fact, most of the women I remember from the 1950s had, waists that you could just about put your hands around. So they really were lean. But what has changed? As scientists, we talk a lot about genetics, but genetics do not really change that fast. Lately, we talk a lot about epigenetics, but they don't really don't seem to be linked to the obesity epidemic yet either. But three things that have changed very noticeably are more sugar in our diets. In fact, it's amazing how much sugar is consumed in this country. If you really look, if you buy foods in the grocery store that are processed in any way, you'll find sugar in the ingredients almost always in one form or another. It might be sugar, it might be high fructose corn syrup, it could be a few other things, but it'll be there most of the time. People do not do much manual labor anymore. So there's not a lot of the general population getting a lot of exercise from the work they do. Most of us have desk jobs these days. And more eating between meals. I don't know about everybody else. When I grew up, it was a strict rule. You don't eat between meals. And that was just part of the culture back then. I don't know if it's culture in other places or not. Maybe, I don't know if Shingman grew up being told not to eat between meals. But I know a lot of people here did in those days, but you don't hear that so much anymore. So it's not as much a part of our culture as it used to be. Of course, people consistently gain weight over the holidays. And that, again, we mentioned last time. That's just something that's been shown that people gain, on average, 1 pound of permanent extra fat during the holiday season. So that's 1 pound is not a lot, really, but over a course of 50 or 60 years, it adds up quite a bit. And, some of the people will tell you that, well, obesity, and it's true, not, the people were living longer for a long time. And despite the increase in obesity, people would point to, well, maybe it's not hurting us that much because the lifespan is actually increasing. And that's true that, the death rate from a lot of these diseases actually declined during the time when obesity was increasing. But I think it's become obvious to most people now that the reason is we've gotten better at keeping people alive longer. And people would reach the end of, get sick and reach the end of their life and die before. Now they kind of get sick, become laid up in hospitals and nursing homes and places like that, but are kept alive a lot longer, even after they're very sick. So that's really what we're looking at, is a huge, very sick population who are living, quite a few years in that kind of state. And that's not something that's really that enviable. So how do we lose this extra weight, like we're talking about? A lot of have accumulated over 40 years or more, and they want to lose it real fast. Well, that's not easy to do, as we said last time. Now, there's always been a lot of ways that people would try to lose weight. Go back to the 1950s and 60s, they had these vibrating belts that people would lean on and it would vibrate. Oh, Dr. Park joined us. Hi. And so that was the way that was popular to lose weight back then. It was kind of an interesting concept that didn't work, but a lot of people, I knew people who had these machines in their home, and they would somehow they believed that vibrating the waist like that would cause the fat to be disappear. But I think it was pretty well decided that didn't work. There were other ways too. People had all kinds of tricks for losing weight. No time for the machine? Well, don't worry, we can fix that. And they had garments, medicated rubber garments. If you put this on, it'll make the fat disappear in that area. Well, it kind of looks funny and it sounds kind of funny now, but these are things that people did. And they didn't work, of course, and they didn't last very long. Now, the potential for weight loss programs hasn't decreased, though, but they've become perhaps more sophisticated. In 1950, there were about 15 million overweight or obese people in the United States, and now it's approaching 200 million. So that's a really big change over time. Of course, the population has grown, but still, we have, as a percentage of the population, about 5 times what we had back then that are in that category. And like we said earlier, that's just the USA. There's 2.2 billion people worldwide who are overweight or obese. So it's really becoming the number one nutritional issue. Health issue, not just nutritional issue, but health issue in the world. The funny thing is that a lot of times you have obesity occurring in the same populations at high rate where you have a lot of malnutrition and undernutrition. Sort of a dual burden type situation. And that's become pretty common in a lot of countries. And it makes a real challenge for how to deal with it. But all of these people want to lose weight, almost all of them anyway. That means there's a lot of opportunities out there to make money. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you do it honestly and do it well. But there's just all kinds of things that have come up. In the 1970s, moving forward, is when we really started seeing diet programs in the United States coming up. There was a Master Cleanse diet, diet pills like Dexatrim. There was the grapefruit diet, the sexy pineapple diet. I'm not quite sure what that is. But anyway, that was one of them. The Scarsdale diet actually was a pretty decent diet. The sugar diet, believe it or not, the American Sugar Association promoted a diet, weight loss diet, in which you were supposed to eat sugar before each meal, either just down some spoonful of sugar or eat some high sugar foods. The idea there was that the sugar would provide energy for you to metabolize all the foods you ate at the meal. Well, all that did was just add calories to the meal. It didn't last long. Obviously, everybody knew it was a joke. I mean, it wasn't a joke, but knew that it didn't make sense. Grazing diet was popular for a while. The idea there was that humans, back whenever, that's the way they ate, and maybe the way we're made to eat is they would have to go hunt for food, and they'd find berries and eat them, and they'd go somewhere else and they'd dig up some roots and eat them, and they'd eat throughout the day, and they would eat like that and never eat a big meal at one time. Well, that may be true for those people, but there's one difference. Grazing right now is it's not hard to find the food. So yeah, you do that and just eat all day long. It doesn't work in our society, at least, even if they did it that way. An interesting diet was the last chance diet. Now, this came on in about the mid 1970s. And I remember it well because I was working at a health food store when that came out. And we actually sold some of the product in that store I was working at. But it was supposed to be for morbidly obese people, primarily, who were under medical supervision. And it actually worked pretty well. It was something that I really didn't particularly care for myself. It was a liquid protein diet that was made from animal collagen and bones and cartilage, and they extracted it. I guess they boiled it and extracted it down somehow, and made this liquid protein, and people would drink that for meals and lose weight, and they did lose weight. There's no question about it. And it worked. Dr. Robert Lynn was an Asian American who started that. Seemed like a pretty nice fellow. However, it ran into problems when there were some people reporting that people were dying who were on the diet, which is not a good thing for a diet, obviously. But the reports were out there. They were published in American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, as I recall, and it pretty quickly the company went out of business, and that was the end of that diet. It was a bit unfair because some years later, about 7 or 8 years after that, I actually happened to read a little footnote in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that they were rescinding that article, and they said that further evaluation of the data indicated that there were no excess deaths from that diet for a population that's morbidly obese as those people were. That was about the same. But anyway, it ended up killing that whole program. I don't miss it too much because I thought that was awful stuff to have to drink. But still, it was a shame that it had to work out that way because the people didn't really analyze our data correctly. Now, later on, none of those diets incidentally have survived. They're all gone today. Scarsdale diet was the best one of that bunch on the previous slide, but actually, the person who invented the diet and was the main person in it was murdered by his partner, and the whole thing fell apart. So that was the end of that diet. But it was actually a pretty decent diet. But in the 1980s, uh, two particularly outstanding programs that uh, I noticed. One was the Atkins diet, and the other the Pritikin diet, and they were absolutely opposite of each other in their approach. Uh, the Atkins diet was a very high protein diet. It included lots of meat, not as many vegetables as you see on that picture. The more modern one does have a lot of those vegetables, but the original one was really heavy on meat, very high protein diet. The Pritikin diet was just the opposite. It was almost all fruits and vegetables. It was designed to be 10% protein, 10% fat, and 80% carbohydrate. The one thing that they did both have in common is that they both really restricted sugars, and they both worked. Both diets really worked. I really considered the Pritikin diet to be the healthiest, although Atkins diet is probably more effective for rapid weight loss. Both of these diets are still practiced today. In fact, you can go into Walmart and find Atkins diet products, snack bars that are very high protein, no sugar, things like that, to use for your weight loss program. So they're still going today from the 1980s. But like we said earlier, all diets have been criticized for not lasting. The effects, they don't last. And I didn't move it over far enough there. But anyway, people usually regain the weight they lose on any diet, and that's true. However, if you think about it, if you have high blood pressure and you're taking blood pressure medication, what happens if you quit it? Well, your blood pressure goes back up. You have to expect that. So, just like the woman here, before she's very heavy, she goes on a diet and has a yo-yo effect, loses the weight, and then comes back down again. And so she regains all the weight that she lost because she went back to the same type of lifestyle as she had before. And people, most of people don't want to stay on a weight loss diet, for the rest of their lives. They want to lose weight and go back to a fairly normal life. And it's true that losing weight can be difficult because your body has become accustomed to a certain fat level, and it doesn't want to give up that fat because it now sees it as normal. In fact, when you start losing weight, if you've been overweight for a good while and you start losing weight, your body's going to rebel. It's going to say, what is going on here? That's metaphorically, but that's basically it, because it's the hormones have become adjusted to your new body fat level. And so they see it as normal. And as you start decreasing your calorie intake, start losing weight, that basically sends a message to the body that you're starving and that you need to get more food. So it's going to be pretty difficult to lose that weight. And just from that New England Journal of Medicine article we talked about last time, it looks to me like it probably takes about 3 years to get your body readjusted, recalibrated to a lower body fat. So it's going to be a while for you to be getting back into a routine where you can, rest easily and not continue your weight loss program. Now, and there's the article again, and if anybody wants to look at this article, by all means, I think it's open access also. It's in the New England Journal of Medicine. And just search Google or go on PubMed, search for uh, hormonal adaptations to weight loss. And this article should come up. Um, and, you can see, we'll just go through these very quickly, but you can see that the hormones responses really didn't go back to normal as people lost the weight. They acted like they were still overweight. And the body's trying to maintain homeostasis. And that's something that every physiologist really looks at, is the homeostatic mechanisms in the body, because that really is what works. The phytostat, so to speak, is the leptin system, but there's a lot of other hormonal systems too that really try to keep your body at a constant body weight. Now, a diet that has been coming up recently is one that's made to increase your brown fat. And I will talk about this one because I think this is one of the bad players, actually, out there. But they have a wonderful ad. So, I watched this video. It lasted about an hour, but somebody was telling me about it and how it looked like it was really great and everything. And so while I was doing this talk on weight loss, so I thought, well, I'll see what they're talking about on this video. And they were talking about, getting the brown fat to work in your favor and to lose the body weight that way. And I thought, well, maybe there's some new research I haven't seen, because I've been watching brown fat research since the 1980s. I've always been interested in it. It's kind of intriguing, but never have seen anything that really seemed like it worked. Well, this one, first of all, he was talking about how much body fat this guy had. He said he was way over obese, and his wife was way over obese and had a self-image problem, blah, blah, blah. And their marriage was just about on the rocks, and all this kind of stuff. So, okay, until he met this doctor from overseas. You usually can't trace down these things very easily. And he said he knew about something that would work for weight loss, but never been able to get people to accept it. So he said that special fruit from a rare Pacific island that nobody else knew about. Okay, it would stimulate brown fat. And then he says, it's not your fault that you're overweight. It's, the problem is that all the scientists out there actually know about this, but they don't want you to know about it because they don't want you to solve your weight problem. There's too much money in weight loss. Well, that sounds sketchy. When people start saying stuff like that, you kind of wonder about it. That's a red flag for you. And things that are rare, like from a rare Pacific island that I've never heard of before, that's a red flag too. And then they said to listen to this video now before the authorities remove it, because the drug companies make billions of dollars on weight loss, and they don't want you to know about this, so they'll get rid of it. And this sounds kind of amateurish to you probably, but it's really a very slick, well done, Hollywood produced video. And it's pretty convincing, to be honest, if you don't know what to watch out for. And you can lose the weight without changing your diet or exercising. Just take this one pill per day that we're selling. Now, and then they listed a whole bunch of herbs that are in it. Well, it had, I think, 9 herbs in it and one little pill. And you can't get a dose that'll work of any herb in that small of an amount. And the truth is, brown fat works great for mice. That's the other thing, but not for people. And they had a whole list of scientific articles underneath there saying, yeah, it's about all the research. But you start looking down the list, all of them that really talked about brown fat were either in mice or rats or isolated cells. None of the articles they had were actually in people. So that's a red flag too. It turns out that brown fat, like I said, works great for mice. However, for people, it's probably never going to work well for obese people. Because one thing they did do in cells that he didn't report on, but I found in another article that Dr. Park sent me actually recently, that toward the end of that article, it's from a good journal, really. It turns out that when they tried to stimulate the adipocytes, the fat cells from humans, they tried in ones that were from humans who were not obese and ones that were obese, the two different kinds of cells. But when they stimulated with norepinephrine, which normally really stimulate what you call UCP1, uncoupling protein 1, that makes the brown fat work. It didn't work on the cells, the fat cells from the people who were obese. Now, it did stimulate it in the fat cells from the people who were not obese. So that kind of gives you a really, could this ever really work in people? Even if it does work, though, there's still no evidence in humans that it can work. It's just not there. And so I have to chalk this up. And there's a number of that's kind of a hot button right now issue for the weight loss industry, I guess, is to stimulate brown fat cells. In fact, they go so far as to say the reason you're fat is because your brown fat cells aren't working right. And that isn't true. So what do we do to lose weight? And here we're getting into more some of the things that I think we really can do and need to do. First of all, just the lifestyle things that we talked about last week. Maintain muscle mass by supplementing with L-leucine, which does stimulate making a muscle, and engaging in strength and endurance exercise. Those are some practical things that can really make a difference. I know that getting exercise is challenging for many people, but it's something you really need to do. Don't eat between meals. That's just a very simple, basic thing. People snack all day long. There's no way you can maintain body weight if you're doing that. Drink water continuously throughout the day. Dr. Kerry Reams, who actually helped us get started, he was really the one that started our company in a way, along with my dad, recommended 4 ounces every 30 minutes as ideal. It seemed like a good recommendation to me, too. So I try to drink about that much water. He says about half your body weight in ounces of water, body weight in pounds. Get plenty of sleep. Now, these things will not make you really lose weight if you're very obese or very heavy, but they will help you normalize it. For some people, they will. That's all you really need to do. If you follow those few things, that would be enough for some people that are not very overweight. But if you're really overweight, you're going to have to go a few steps more because that's not going to get you there. But if you make these habits now, they will keep your weight, in my opinion, where it should be after you finish a weight loss program. And that's why I sort of do this thing, like I said, backwards. Do the maintenance part and make that a habit first, and then go into the weight loss part and just keep this for a permanent lifestyle. Now, some of the diets that are out there actually do work well, and we'll talk about them. Lots of variations on the high protein, low carb diets. There's the Atkins diet, the keto diet, which encourages you to go into a ketotic state. And don't confuse that with ketoacidosis. It's not the same thing, really. It's a much more uh, milder form of ketosis. And it doesn't appear to be dangerous. The paleo diet, similar to those are all kind of variations of very much the same diet. The paleo diet is one that's based on what they think the Paleolithic people ate and how they lived. And I don't know that that's a very good approach because we really don't know what they ate. So people are very, the anthropologists would disagree quite a bit on that among themselves. But anyway, the diet itself isn't too bad. And you can find diet programs and diet products in stores and on the internet for all of these things. So it's pretty easy to follow these diets if you need to. All of these eliminate almost all sugars and starches. Some can include a lot of meat, but it can also be vegetarian and even vegan. So they've really tweaked these diets quite a bit in recent years. So you can eat a variety of diet styles and do it healthfully and be vegan, vegetarian if you want to. If done well, they can, like I say, they can be quite healthy. And they can be a permanent change in diet, although most people won't have to go to that extent forever if they lose weight. It does require participants that they do to give up things like desserts, pastry, pastas, bread, sweetened beverages, and juices. These are things that are basically high glycemic index foods. And so in these diets, you really do have to pretty much eliminate those foods, or keeping them at a very, very minimum. And so that's a change that most people don't like. I'll be honest there. I don't like it either. So, it's not something that you like, but it is probably better for you. The ketogenic diet, like I said, puts the body in a state of ketosis, which is very efficient at burning fat, incidentally. And there's several different types of ketogenic diets. The standard one is very low carbohydrate with moderate protein and high fat. Typically contains about 70% fat, which is, to me, too much. 20% protein and only 10% carbs. Now, they have made some variations of the keto diet. And so you can see that cyclical ketogenic diet involves periods of high carbs and refeeds, such as 5 ketogenic days followed by 2, normal or higher carb days. And then there's other ones. And the actually the keto diets have been modified even more than what this suggests. And you can go to some places and find ways of eating a keto diet if you want to try it. Dietdoctor.com, low carb, keto, vegetarian. That link will get you there. There are other programs that give you similar things. The Nutrisystem diet will actually send you meals to eat for your diet program. I think it costs almost $300 a month to follow that. A little bit expensive, but you can do it. There's another program, Noom, that helps you do the programs and do the food on your own. It costs about $60 to have a tailored nutritional program that you follow. And these actually work fairly well. They're a little bit expensive, but they do work. However, I don't really think you have to do that to use these diets. You can do them on your own if you want to work at putting the diets together. Intermittent fasting is one of the newest approaches, and one of my favorites, to be honest. There's 3 primary ways that people engage in intermittent fasting. Time-restricted eating, where you only eat one specific time of day. You might eat in an 8 to 12 hour period. Usually people will be on the lower end of that, maybe 8 hour period. between say 11 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the afternoon. And you don't eat any rest of the day, just during that time. That's one type of fasting. Alternate day fasting, where uh, one day you'll eat pretty much normally, quote, and the next day is a fasting day with very reduced calories or no calories. Uh, the other way that I like the best is the third one, periodic fasting or whole day fasting. Just take one day out of the week or two, 1 or 2 days out of the week and fast. Just drink water or maybe just a little bit of other liquids if you need to keep your blood sugar up. That worked pretty well, actually. But I actually like a combination of these methods for weight loss. I like a combination of a low, simple carbohydrate diet, diet without sugars, without the starches that are easily converted to sugars. The keto, paleo diets have lots of options for doing that that are not extremely high in meat products necessarily. The protein comes from often dairy, yogurt is commonly eaten, eggs, legumes, nuts, whole grains, but not the flour from the whole grains, seeds, etc. So you might eat, for instance, steel cut oats, but not oat flour. You could eat, I think, old fashioned type oats. They take a while to digest, and that could be included in this diet. You would also eat cruciferous vegetables and avocados with limited amounts of fruits, and especially limited amounts of very sweet, sugary fruits. So, you can eat a pretty healthy diet and be in that range. But you must avoid, like we said, the sugar sweetened beverages, juices, flours, etc. So, you know, that's a good way of doing it. And I like the idea of combining kind of this low, a little bit higher protein, not very high protein diet, but very low, simple carbohydrate diet with the intermittent fasting. And that's a surefire way of losing weight. It really is. Now, just a few more notes. And, this is really not about looking good. It's not about our physical appearance that makes this important. It's really about having a healthy life throughout this age. You can see the grandchildren, the mother, and the grandfather there all together healthy. That's what this is about, is maintaining a healthy lifestyle that will keep you with a good body type, feeling good, and really able to function for a long lifespan. I do not suggest rapid weight loss. I think that's asking for trouble. And a lot of people do worry about people losing weight too fast and the health consequences. And I think they have a reason to be concerned about that. 1 pound to half a kilo of weight per week is plenty. If you can maintain that over a year, you've lost a lot of weight. So, don't have to lose a lot of weight fast. It's better to let your body adjust to it anyway. And even if you do not need to lose weight, you almost certainly need somebody who does. So this is the kind of program that really is healthy and can be used by anyone who needs to be losing weight. And you'll be doing them a big favor, because the guy that was talking to me about the brown fat diet, he was all enthusiastic about it, talking about it. And as I went through that diet, I really spent some time trying to learn what he was talking about. I wondered, could there possibly be more information out there that I don't know, new research on that or something? That would be great, but there just isn't. I really looked at all the recent research pretty carefully, and there's a lot of people out there who are taking advantage of people. But there's some very simple ways that you can change your diet and your lifestyle to lose weight and to do it healthfully and to have a healthy life. And that's really all we have for today. I hope you will join us next time because we'll talk about some more ways that you can actually add to this a bit. But you have enough tools available to you at this point if you follow some of these guidelines to really lose the weight. And you may not need the more advanced tools. There are dietary supplements that you can use that will assist you in this process, and we'll talk about those down the road. But right now, this is a good way to start. And thank you very much. And I'll be happy to hear comments from anybody. Anybody have any comments on this? You know, people talk about a lot how the weight loss companies are making all these millions and billions of dollars on weight loss. To be perfectly honest, they've lost more money than they've made so far. I don't know if you all remember the FinFin diet program. I think Sunman Park was in the US at the time when that was popular, I believe. For a very short time, Dick Workman up at MIT invented it. Well, yeah, developed it and had the patent on it anyway. And that was one that a drug program for losing weight, dexfenfluramine and phentermine combined, I think it was. And, you know, it really was destroying people's hearts. And it ended up costing Wyeth Pharmaceutical Company somewhere in the range of $20 billion. Dick Workman and Judith promoted it and got the interest up in it and sold the patent to Wyeth, and for billions of dollars. And then it all fell through pretty quickly, and there were just lawsuits everywhere on that. And the weight loss, and that's been kind of a pattern with weight loss drugs, is that they just haven't proven successful very often. But Stephen Zeisel actually worked in Dick Workman's lab earlier in his career. And I asked him, because I knew he knew Dick real well, Dick and Judith. And I asked, how did Dick come out on this? I mean, it's a pretty bad thing that happened. He said, well, don't worry about Dick. He came out smelling like a rose. He sold the patent and was out of it. So he made a lot of money. But Wyeth really took a beating on it. And it was a sad thing because it really did do a lot of harm to people.
I got a question on the time-restricted fasting.
Yeah.
8 to 12 hour window to eat. That's just like pretty much most Americans who eat breakfast at, let's say, 8 o'clock, lunch at noon, and then supper at 6, isn't it?
Well, I think the 12-hour is too long because, yeah, okay. I'd agree there. You don't eat late at night before you go to bed and stuff like that. And that cuts back on that some. But I think the 8 hours, and some of them even do it fewer hours than that. I think that one probably isn't as effective for most people. Mm-hmm. Some people may, eat a lot before they go to bed at night, and that's part of their problem or a big part of it. For those people, that might help. But I think I think that's too long of a window period for that. But that's what they said anyway.
Gotcha.
No, I like the just taking a day a week off and fast. As you will lose weight in that day, no doubt about it. With the time restricted ones, you can beat the system if you want to. And I think eliminating eating between meals will go a long ways for most people. And eliminate, if you get your exercise and things, you eliminate eating between meals and you get rid of the sugars. and starches, you're going to, almost certainly lose weight. Now, that's not something that most people, when you start talking about, eliminating your sweets, that's a hard sell for a lot of people, no question. But, that is, you know, there is so much more sugar in our diet than there used to be. That has to be a big part of it. I mean, when I was a kid and you bought a Coke, it was a little 6-ounce bottle, a glass bottle with Coke in it. Now you got these things with 20 ounces, huge things that people drink. It's just when you start looking at some of these things, it seems pretty obvious. And the hard part, the difficult thing is reversing the process, because once you've gotten that fat, you've had it for a while, it's hard to turn it around. So it is a hard process. But I think most people, like I say, if they can lose 1 pound a week, and for a lot of people, it doesn't need to be that much. You can be 1 pound a month. And there's a lot of people around here that like to lose like 10 or 15 pounds. Well, you don't have to make too many changes to do that. But if you're very overweight, it's not going to be something easy, but it is possible. So are you seeing yet much obesity in China, Shingman?
Yes, it's increasing. So
increasing?
yeah, it's becoming a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's it's Korea. It's increasing some too. It's interesting. One thing people don't realize, a lot of scientists that don't realize, is that the definition of obesity is different for East Asia, at least, and maybe all of Asia, than it is for Caucasians, for Westerners. But Asians tend to deposit fat viscerally a lot more quickly than we do in most of the people in the West. And so it really is more damaging to have a smaller amount of fat. And so that's a consideration. So if you look at just BMI, it doesn't look like Korea is increasing that much, but they actually are, because they have a different definition of overweight and obesity. So it's getting to be a problem in a lot of places. And I think a lot of it is that we just have too much easy access to food. Because I don't have to walk 2 or 3 steps to have lots of food available to me from my office here. So it's something you just have to watch, be careful about. Anybody else have any comments or questions or suggestions?
Yeah, I can add to the Jonathan's question. I can add some comments on the Jonathan's question.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
So it is important to increase ketones in the blood, so that can affect some weight management. So when you do intermittent fasting, it's important to maintain some ketones in your blood. We did some study about Korean food, which has one is low glycemic and another has high glycemic, and we checked it, and both increase ketones, but actually low glycemic diet increase ketones more than high glycemic index. As you said, most people eat about 12 hours, you do not eat much, right? So probably people can have somehow intermittent fasting every day when we do a 12-hour intermittent fasting. But when we eat high glycemic index, it doesn't work well.
The
That is
high
the thing.
glycemic diet.
Yeah, so it does not work. But low glycemic diet, it is working. When
Yeah. Yeah,
do
that's
that.
what I
So-
say. I kind of like the concept of actually combining the intermittent fasting with the low carbohydrate and well, and I should probably say low glycemic index diet. I mean, some carbohydrates are just fine, especially the cruciferous vegetables, for instance, and things like that that are not very high glycemic index and have a lot of fiber in them.
So in Korea, we eat a lot of rice.
Yeah.
So when we eat rice, so refined rice is not good for losing weight, I think.
No,
And
it's
some,
yeah, your
brown
the
rice.
simple carbohydrates. Yeah, white rice is almost as high glycemic index, I think, as white potatoes. So, yeah, they really work against you. And the guy at the, getting people off of sugars, that's the hard one. The guy I was talking about to at the gym who had been talking about the diet with the brown fat, he said, I was talking to him about that. And he said, I really like my Little Debbie's. You know what Little Debbie's are? The snack cakes. Actually, I knew the people that owned that company. But when I was in college, Ellsworth McKee, who was the son of the founder of that company, taught flying lessons, and I took flying lessons from him for a while. Airplane flying. I didn't do it for too long. It got too expensive, but I did it for a while. They're nice people, but their Little Debbie's are not your friends. They're really not healthy for you because they are very high glycemic index. They're desserts. So, they're just not something that, you need to be eating really, period. But yeah, the low glycemic index combined with intermittent fasting, I think is really a great way to go. You can buy, prepared meals and all these kind of things if you want to, and follow those programs like the Atkins diet or the Nutrisystems diet and different ones. But you don't have to. You can do it on your own, really. But having a structure like that will help a lot of people, I think. So that's okay if you need that and you have the money, go for it.
Yeah, I was curious because I eat roughly twice a day these days. Once I hit my target weight that I wanted to get to 165, because I'm 6'2", I'll sometimes eat breakfast, but usually I eat at 6 o'clock with Kat and maybe a snack around 9 o'clock. And when my snacks are like cucumbers and carrots and tomatoes and things like that. It's always been that way. And my weight maintains at 165. I don't go up, I don't go down. But I generally eat about 2 meals a day. So
that's pretty much what I do mostly. With my lunch here is a big meal.
Yeah.
Usually. Yeah. I think also Sunmin and I were talking last night about timing, how much time you spend at the meal. Because remember last time we talked about it takes about 30 minutes for satiety to start to set in to your brain. It gets from your mouth to your, it doesn't seem like it's too far to get from your mouth to your brain, but it's got to go all the way down here and back up again. These signals do. So, it doesn't, it takes about 30 minutes for that to work. So I've been trying to do, maybe 20 minutes or so before lunch, maybe eat a small snack that's high protein, because proteins seem to be the main stimulus for satiety among the, between carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. It seems like the proteins are the major stimulant from what I've been reading. So a lot of times I'll put a little cup of yogurt. I got to watch the yogurts. I sometimes buy the ones with the little fruit stuff in the bottom that's got a lot of sugar, so I've got to be more careful about that. I shouldn't do that. But the yogurt with a few nuts in it and stir it up and eat it, to get, that's not very many calories really, but you sort of get the stimulus started a little bit ahead of time. And I'm hoping that I feel like it's working, but I don't have a good way of measuring it, objectively. That I'm not quite as hungry by the time I start eating. We'll eat less when I actually eat the meal at lunchtime. A lot of times I don't eat breakfast at all. The lunch is the first meal of the day. Sometimes I'll eat something small, but anyway, I think, it's a what can you say? It's a journey for all of us to figure out how to be healthy. I think something that we each have to customize to ourselves, and that's one thing I like about some of the approaches, like Noom and different ones. If you use them, they customize the nutrition program to you, to work for you. And, it's a lot of money to spend, but, people spend an awful lot of money on a lot of things, and to spend a little bit of money on your health, that's worth it. So I don't discourage people from using those programs at all by any means. However, I don't think it's necessary either if you're willing to put a little bit of time and effort into, structuring your diet right. Most people can lose weight if they really want to. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy. It's not by any means, because your body's going to be fighting you. If you're obese and you're trying to get back to a normal weight, it's going to be a struggle. There's no way around it. But it's a struggle worth engaging in, I think, in the long run. Well, I guess any more comments, questions, suggestions? I think Dr. Park is right on it with the low glycemic index combined with the intermittent fasting. That's ideal. You're combining two different systems into one, and it makes it pretty powerful, in my opinion. But getting people, I mean, how do you convince people in Korea not to eat rice? That's such a
what I'm saying is low glycemic rice. So some brown rice can work, and reduce the amount
brown
of
rice is a
rice
little bit lower glycemic, not that
to
much.
eat.
Yeah, really.
That works.
Yeah. But it helps. Yeah. Okay. But probably the worst invention ever was the invention of making white rice. It caused a lot of health problems from, in Asia, because it just removed all the B vitamins from the rice too. That was, and of course here it was the white flour, but we didn't depend on flour as much as Asians depended on rice for our diet. So flour, the white wheat flour was bad enough, but it wasn't as big a part of our diet as rice was in Asia. Okay, well, I think everybody have a nice day, Sunmin, and
nice.
everybody else have a nice evening.
Thank
Nice
you. Good
evening.
night, Jim.
Okay,
Bye.
goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.